Hey, everybody. So thank you for joining me on this wonderful, wonderful Tuesday evening. We do have a really great show planned for you. As always, before I start anything, guys, thank you everybody so much who watches and joins the show. You guys are the fuel that feed this fire, that makes me want to do this every single day, who wants to put so much of energy into creating something that hopefully impacts you and adds value to your life. And this is what I strive for now and hopefully into perpetuity. But, for right now, let's just talk about what we're going to talk about today. So let's get all the particular stuff out of the way, as we always do, everybody. So guys, if this is your first time watching us on YouTube, we're streaming live there. You can check us out on our channel at www.youtube.com/C/Made from Scratch broadcast. If you're watching there, do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe button. We are always trying to build our viewership, and hit the notification bell. It'll let you know whenever we do go live, schedule new lives, and whenever we do drop new content on the channel. So if you're watching on YouTube, thank you guys so much as always. And of course, we are streaming live on Facebook. You can check us out on our Facebook page, and that is at www.facebook.com/Made from Scratch podcast. A little bit different on that one, guys. We are working to try to get this all together so it'll be so much easier for you guys. But again, if you're watching on Facebook, thank you so much. Hit the like button. Same sort of deal. It'll send you notifications whenever we do go live. And then whenever we do schedule new lives on the channel, you will know about it ahead of time. And you can also hit a reminder button, and it'll let you know. That's one of the nice features about doing it on Facebook. And of course, we're streaming live via Periscope on Twitter, and you can check us out on our handle at MSBSB Live on Twitter. Follow us. We always follow back. So, again, guys, thank you so much. If you're following on Twitter, drop it down in the comments and let me know. And then, of course, we are streaming live, everybody, on LinkedIn. So if you're watching on LinkedIn Live, thank you guys so much. If you're not connected with me, get connected, man. You can send me a connection request, invitation. I always try to answer these personally. So if you guys are watching there, thank you again so much. And then we're also streaming on, I don't have it up here yet, but we are streaming live on Twitch, and you can check us out on Twitch, and that is at Made from Scratch Broadcast TV on Twitch. So guys, thank you everybody who's watching as well. Now that we got all the good stuff out of the way, let's get started with this evening's program. I want to start out by talking about the two people who I have on the show this evening. I became very fascinated with them early on in my journey about wanting to learn how to do a podcast, particularly so because I wanted to do a podcast with a partner. So when I first caught a glimpse of these two ladies doing what they do, I really wanted to understand the process and at some point emulate what they do, because they have a really great connection in between each other. So I am talking about Campos and Deb Sorensen. So they are the creators of the Divine Breadcrumb. They have an online community and a podcast. So if you're not connected with the podcast, let me tell you, man, it is really great listening. They have so many wonderful guests on there, and there's so much that when I've listened, that I've been able to take out of it and learn. So I would strongly suggest taking the time, and I'm going to give the website there, and that is at www.divinebreadcrumb.com. Please go there, check out the community, check out the podcast, the blogs. It is a really great website that these two ladies have put together, and their story is just as interesting. So guys, do me a big favor and help me welcome to the show the two wonderful women that I want to have a conversation with, Miss Campos and, of course, Miss Deb Sorensen. Thank you, ladies, so much for taking the time to come on the show. I've always wanted to have both of you guys on, even though I've had Carol on before. Carol was guys, this is episode 87, and she was 24. So she's been with me for a long time, and I really do appreciate all her support, and of course, just her being her. She's an awesome person.
Oh,
so if you're not connected with Carol, please do. You're cheating yourself if you're not. And of course, her partner in crime, Miss Deb Sorensen. Both of you guys, like I was explaining a little bit in the intro, one of the most fascinating things that I loved when I first started hearing you guys doing the podcast, and I first doing the investigative work of wanting to do one, was the way you had a really good, deep connection. And of course, I found out, of course, you guys were friends for a very long time. But not knowing that, you still like, wow, okay, the way they talk between each other, the way they communicate, it was very fluid. And I loved it. And I said, you know, I had actually reached out to Carol and asked her about, you know, the whole process, because I wanted to do, you know, here I am doing a live stream, but I wanted to do just a podcast at that point. I was as green as could be, did not know anything about the process. And I figured I would just reach out to people who, you know, essentially had been doing it a lot longer than me, and just engaging about experience about it. And of course, she was as open as possible. She told me as much as she could, and I was very thankful. So, you know, kind of walk me, guys, a little bit through. Now, I know you've probably told your story 1,000 times, but let's just give the brief recap of how you two guys came up with the whole concept of the Divine Breadcrumb.
Sure, I'll start and then I'll hand it over to Deb.
There you go.
So I had been in corporate for over 20 years and just never feeling like I belonged there. And it took me a long time to kind of get up the guts to make the leap and do something different. So in early 2018, I finally left, and I didn't have a job to go to, which was by design. I really wanted to do some personal development work and figure out why things weren't working the way I wanted them to. I kept attracting similar types of circumstances in my personal and professional life. So I knew I needed to work on me. And after about 2 months of kind of spinning out, I hired a coach, and he really helped me start looking at my patterns, but also giving me permission to not always be doing things. Because I remember being really guilty because he had me visualizing and meditating, and you know, we were talking about tapping before the show, all this stuff. And I thought, well, that's all great, but I'm not doing anything. And he said, yeah, but you're in butterfly training school. This is what you need to do. You know, you've already done the doing. This is the time to just be. And so I thought, all right, he kind of gave me permission, took the weight off. So a little bit after that, I was exercising, and anyone who knows me knows I hate exercising. And I was in the middle of like a plank or a push-up. And all of a sudden I got what I describe as a download of information about forming a community called the Divine Breadcrumb and start showcasing, you know, really heart-centered, wonderful people around the globe doing great things. And I just thought, whoa, where the heck did that come from? But it got me really excited. You know, I was all buzzy, and, you know, when you get that energy and you know you're on the right track. And so, of course, I, you know, went right to Deb's, and, you know, Deb and I have been friends for over 20 years, and I told her about it. And yeah, why don't you take it from there, Deb?
Yeah.
So Carol told me about it, and of course I got all excited and buzzy too. And she had been using the phrase divine breadcrumbs for years. And for anyone that's not familiar with the term, we define it as just those little serendipities or coincidences. Sometimes they can be really small, sometimes they can be really big, or those things that happen in your life that sort of make you look at something a little differently, or maybe lead you down a completely different path. It can be a chance meeting in a supermarket line. It can be the lyric of a song. It can be a book that you read, anything. I mean, it can, or big, it can be, you know, a horrible illness or death of someone in your family, but it just makes such an impact on you that you go somewhere that you hadn't thought you'd go before.
Exactly.
So she's telling me about this, and I'm getting excited. And, you know, we're talking about the different things that we could do. And neither one of us take the blame or credit, however you want to look at it, for who came up with, we should do a podcast. One of us said, hey, we should do a podcast. No. Now, at that point in my life, I hadn't even listened to a podcast. So we knew nothing about podcasting. But in true Divine Breadcrumb fashion, within a few days, I had been telling my wife about this, and my wife is a member of Creative Live, which is an organization out in I believe it's California, and they do a lot of training. And she got an email in her inbox. It was a week-long podcast boot camp, free. 40 hour podcasting boot camp for free.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I guess we're supposed to do a podcast.
Right. So that's I'm such a believer in the universe taking you to certain parts, saying, okay, this is the path you need to be on, my friend.
Yep.
You looking for a solution. You don't even have the slightest inclination of where you're supposed to go. And then one day, boom, there it is in front of you. And you cannot do nothing. You can't ignore it. You cannot, you have to just go, I have to act on it. So I love the fact that you guys call it that, because I love the fact as well, because that's the way I've felt along my journeys. There's just been these, and I've told Carol this, there's these little breadcrumbs along the way that, guess what? I walk by and it's just staring me up there, saying, you know what? Keep following it. It's leading you somewhere very nice, and it's still continuing to lay out its path for me, and I keep walking down it going, okay, how far is this thing going to go? I don't care. I just like the way where I'm going. So I love the fact that you guys have done this. Now, how did you guys formulate the sort of method that you guys were going to operate, as a duo, who logistically, who does certain parts, that sort of thing? How is that broken down between you two?
Well, I think we were lucky that our skill sets were very compatible in one sense, but then, Deb is a web developer by trade, so she had more of the technical skills. In corporate, I was doing a lot of the communication, relationship building. So things just kind of fell naturally, to be honest. And that summer, because it was summer when this was all decided, we spent a lot of time in her swimming pool having meetings about how this was all going to look. And it all seemed so kind of far away and dreamlike. And, on the one hand, in the pool, it was all very exciting. We'd sit there with cocktails. But then as it got closer, it got a little bit scary. Like, okay, now we really got to do this. And we've been telling people about it. So now we really have to do it. And as Deb mentioned, this wasn't something that we really knew how to do, but, we took as much training as we could, and we decided, we're going to do kind of a practice recording where it's just the two of us, and we're going to tell our story. Well, we must have rescheduled that meeting at least 3 or 4 times because we were so scared to do this.
Yeah.
And the first time we did it, I had a pit in my stomach, even though it's not live. I don't know what we were so afraid of, but I had my glass of water, I had my chapstick, I have tissues, I'm all good. And if you listen to that first episode, we're kind of stiff, but it really was trial and error.
Yeah. So let me ask you about that, because that's interesting to me. You guys have done quite a few now. Do you ever go back and listen to a lot of the early stuff to kind of say, you know what, I've come a really long way as a host, and just doing interview style of work and that sort of thing? Because I know I have a really big fear going back and watch. I've told this before. I've done 87 episodes. I've gone back and watched 5 from the beginning to the end. But I do journal about it once I get done off the air. So I think I rely a lot more on what I've learned and what I write down than when I go back and see it. Because I wince when I go back and watch, and I tell people, hey, you want to see how, everybody thinks the glorious journey to get here, how it's, when you get to this point, they go, wow, it's impressive. And you know what's impressive? Go watch the first episode. That's the one where you go, oh my gosh, if you can grit that one out, then okay, yeah, I'm very appreciative of where I'm at now along this journey. So that's very interesting that, when you start doing something like this, you put that in your own mindset, like, man, am I doing this right? What if they don't like this, or what if this doesn't connect, or what these are all questions that I've had to ask people now who come to me and asking me about, hey, I want to do a live stream show. Okay, cool. let's open it up. Let's talk about, first of all, what do you want to talk about? Well, I do have this. Okay, cool. Look, I'm going to tell you what. I am I'm anti-establishment when it comes to saying there's a certain particular way that you got to do things.
Right.
I have not done anything conventional with what I've done with my show. I've done everything that they tell me not to do. Don't niche down your audience. Do this, create it down this way. To me, I brought in the scope as wide as I can, because I think it's going to land me what I'm looking for. And that's the hard thing, is I don't know what I'm looking for sometimes, but I would at least want it broadcasted as far as I could. So maybe something will come my way. I think that's why you say you open it up to the universe just to see.
Absolutely.
What is out there. So, one of the things that you guys have talked about, and I've heard you talk about this, Carol, is having your own show now gives you the ability to ask, to go after guests. So kind of walk us through, because you did land a pretty big fish, between you two, and it was a really great episode. I'm gonna tell you what, I gotta get compliments. Dee Wallace is a super cool, super awesome person. Yes. And I love the episode that you guys did. So kind of walk us through that process about whenever you say, you know what, I'm going to go ask this person, I'm going to go ask that person.
Yeah. So I think in the beginning, I had a lot of trepidation about approaching people. There was a little bit of fangirling on my part for, with certain people. But I think after you do it the first time and realize that the worst they can say is no, and anytime we've gotten a no, they've been so nice. And actually, we've never really gotten a straight out no. It's more of a not yet, or can't do it right now. Everybody's been super nice. So there's nothing to lose. There's really nothing to lose. And I've done it a few different ways. I've tried, emailing them on their contact form. Sometimes that has worked. Sometimes it's gone in a black hole. I've contacted them kind of through the back door on Instagram. Different. And, what works with one person doesn't always work with another. But I've kind of come up with a formula that works for me, and it feels authentic. I don't pretend to be Oprah level, and I basically say that we're a growing podcast, and we're just trying to bring a little light to the world. And sometimes people are just like, maybe they're thinking, oh, that's actually kind of nice, I can spare 30 minutes to add a little light to the world. We're not asking for anything huge, we're not selling anything, we're not, it's just a conversation.
Yeah, and that's been one of the best things for me as well, is the fact that I don't have anything to push. My agenda is I want to have a good conversation with you, number one. And of course, I love talking about positive energy, and I love talking about the creative process. These are the two things that I stress. So when I try to reach these sort of people to come on, that's what I stress to them. Hey, I either get somebody that's weighed heavy on one side, so they might be about super positive energy. We get all this, and I love those shows. And then we get somebody who's like more about the creative process. We talk about how I've created books, or writers, or musicians, or these kind of people. And then I get the people who are like the mixture of the perfect combination of both. And I love the fact that those shows, those are my favorite ones to have. Because I get both sides of it, of what I'm passionate about, what I love to share. So I'm pretty sure you ladies have a lot of the same things. You, whenever you reach out for guests, you look for guests who are, very, very close to or passionate to what you do, or at least an interesting topic that goes along with something that you love to share. So, what is one of the things that has been a hard thing? I don't want to say hard, but what has been one of the harder learning processes you've taken away from doing this together? I mean, you guys have created quite a bit.
Well, time management is a really big one. just not enough time in the day.
That's what I was going to say. That's one of the harder ones.
And I still haven't mastered that. And I don't know that it's so much hard, but there's just so many people we want to talk to, and the process of getting someone to be on the show. It's not like it's a quick, send them an email, they say yes, and boom, we record it and we're done. I mean, it's a much lengthier process than that. So with all these people that we want to have on, and then you factor in all of that.
Yes. And that's a whole nother thing to look at. I know because believe it or not, even when you do one every day, it's the same process. So many people you want to talk to.
Yeah.
So many, but there's only so much time in the day. There's only so much time. Even if I'm doing one of these every day, I mean, I literally wrote out a list of like 60 people that I wanted to talk to. I've maybe got 20 people off of that list knocked off. So that means there's still another 40 people that I want to reach out to. And I'm doing one of these every day.
I don't know how you do it every day.
Yeah, I'm so impressed.
Well, let me tell you what you just mentioned, I've had to master to maximize my time. And I mean, literally, there's hardly no time for hiccups because you have to literally, this is the hard part about what I do. I can finish a show, journal, do whatever, but I really don't have that moment where you get to reflect. That's the one thing I say I do regret that I don't get to experience. So like if you did a show, really great show, you put in a lot of work and effort, and afterwards when you're done, you get to reflect on what you've done, the work you've created, what you've learned, all these other things. That's why I essentially have to sit here 30 minutes after the show and journal what I want to remember, what I want to think about with each one of the guests that I've had on, because I know that tomorrow it's like an Etch-a-Sketch. I have to shake the thing out, clear it out again, and then get started all over with the process. So it is one of those things where if I want to continue to grow, I've gotten to the point where I've really started relying on a lot of friends in the background to help me get this to another level of creation, because like you said, we wake up every day and we all have the same amount of time, but even that runs out. So you got to figure out a way, and the best way is to have somebody else to help you along. So I love the fact that you guys have first of all been friends long enough to feel comfortable doing something like this, and then being able to, separate, because again, not only you guys are doing a show, but you guys also have careers. I mean, that's a whole nother thing to think about. I mean, you literally have to work that into your schedule, because it's a lot of you guys are doing what I'm doing. You're creating, it's a passion project. It's, it's something that you say, you know what, I would, at some point, yes, I want the goal to be that this is what carries me through life. This is what, hopefully that door opens up, but I still have to keep doing it all the time. But in the meantime, it's still something that I'm fired up about. I get to be passionate about. And, I love the fact that you guys are doing this all, and then not only that, the quality of the guests that you guys get, because it's never like just one sort of thing over and over again. It's always something different. And I love that about what you guys share, because again, I think that's the spice of life, is different people, different approaches. There's no one size cure all. There's not a pill that fixes everything.
Right.
Some things connect with some people, some things don't. And, I wanted to ask Deb a question,
Sure.
about Carol. So,
Uh-oh.
Well, I see, I guess I would say she's more of like the social butterfly. So how is that, how's that been for you when you guys are doing a show? Is she the one that just naturally takes the control, or, not just control, but I mean, she's the one to be able to open up a lot more, or do you feel like, hey, I want to, I want to take over. I want to start the talking. I want to start whatever it is. I mean, reason I'm asking is because I don't know if I should say it or not, but I'm thinking about doing this with the co-host, and I don't want to be the person that's just overshadowing what they bring. I want to be able to highlight it. So that's why I'm asking, because I think, because I of course follow Carol, and she's all over social media. She's always doing all these other things. So kind of walk me through that process, because I want to learn. I'm trying to learn how to interact with the co-host is what I'm essentially asking.
I mean, luckily, because Carol and I know each other so well, I think we just sort of have this pattern of conversation between us anyway. And, Carol does do a lot of the research when we have guests. She's the one that does most of the research. And she'll usually come up with sort of a loose flow for the conversation. And so we kind of just balance that out and try and I mean, the show is supposed to be conversational, just like this is, like we're doing right now. But at the same time, things will come up mid-show. So we may have, some questions that have gone down a certain track, and they start talking about something that's amazing. And, we just kind of jump in, and sometimes we talk over each other, but our show's edited. So we do have the luxury of, I can go in and fix places that have, glitches or sound problems or things like that. So, or if we totally flub it up, we can just be like, oh, hang on, start over.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. So that's one of the things about doing this, though. There's no safety net. You get what you get. And I think that's, me and Russ have the same philosophy about, not that we can't, not that we don't, nothing that's wrong with it. We just hate editing. And that's one of the things why we have to cut that out if we want to do this on the daily, because editing is a little bit of work.
It's a lot of work.
So to do this every day and then to go back to edit, the only way you could possibly do this is if you got 10 interns and say, here, look, here's the tape, go fix it and then put it on there. But as doing it where I'm a one-man show, I have to go, okay, I have to put a ton of work into pre-show. That way, when I do get everything going, and once the product is finished, if it's smooth and varnished, oh well. If it's grainy and it's got a little bit of things figured out, either way, I got to put it out there. So I try to do that a lot of the times. That way, it helps me control my time. But the reason I'm so interested is because, like I said, I'm about to take on somebody else along with me on this journey, and these are things that I want to at least understand a little bit before saying, hey, this is my show. I don't want it just to be my show. I want it to be somebody who has an equal say, a partnership, and feel comfortable doing this. So that's why I find you guys intriguing, because you have that dynamic. And even though it's a friendship, you still have to work and figure out what is our balance as far as what we can do, so that's great that you guys do this. And I try to do a lot of the same things that you guys do when it comes to like listening to somebody and actively listening. When somebody goes, you hear something that's so interesting, let's go down that pathway. Let's keep talking about it, because I can be, believe me, I can, if I wanted to be super structured. 10 questions. We're going to go through these all through the bang, 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 bang. I prefer the free flow conversation, because sometimes you learn new things that you did not expect to learn from having these conversations. I mean, I still remember something that Carol said to me in our first episode that has stuck with me. And we were just having to be talking at the beginning about COVID-19. And we were talking about the perception of control. And she said something to the effect of, well, did we even really have control in the first place? It stopped me in my tracks to make me think, to go, you know what? There's so much truth in it. Did I ever have control? This this is again, the divine universe, if you believe in a lot of these things, which I am a big proponent of. I just think we like to have that perception of we control the fates.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes it's a little bit different. So, ladies, I let me ask you another question, and this one has to do with the show creation. So, what did you guys do whenever you started to come up with the idea of building a community? Because again, this is something that I want to broach as well. Mm-hmm. Even though I have people that follow, you actually have a community where you've built connection. There's things that people can go and read, links. There's so much still going on there. So what was the first building blocks in putting something like that together? Because I'm very interested and want to learn.
Well, I think when we really first started talking about the Divine Breadcrumb, it wasn't all about the podcast. Yes. Ideally, what we really wanted to do was travel around the country, around the world, and give talks and engage with people. And the podcast was a great vehicle to, get our name out there, what we want to do. So it's been very organic, to be honest. And it's just slow and steady. We don't do a lot of advertising. I think we've done 2 sponsored posts since we started. And there's probably things we could get better at as far as that goes. But it's been very organic. So there's the podcast, which, obviously I put stuff out on Instagram and LinkedIn. And LinkedIn's been a great platform, obviously, to get some engagement and provide awareness for the podcast. And then before COVID, we had just started doing some talks in person. So that was another layer, and we loved that. But obviously those plans have been kind of put on hold a little bit.
Of course.
And then the blogs, there's some people like my mom, for example, she could care less about listening to a podcast, but she'll read the blog. So that's another way. There's some people that they're really not interested in that, but they want to read what you're all about. So there's been some different avenues, creating courses, which, we did the Life Flip. We're going to probably reopen registration in September. So that's another way. I think if you go at it with the idea of having a few different avenues for people to come to you, and like you said, Gabriel, I feel like I don't like the whole niche thing because I just feel like I don't know. I honestly don't know who will gravitate towards what we're doing. I've been shocked by some of the people who have kind of come to us that are super corporate, super buttoned up, but yet we're interested in some of the little bit more like spiritual topics or energy healing or that kind of thing. And I don't want to alienate anyone. I feel like if you're meant to find the show, you're going to find it. And we're just going to try to keep finding different guests who are diverse and represent all of us.
Yeah. And that's, that's the same mindset that what I've done with same thing here. Why would I want to paint myself in a corner? And again, I'm like you, I don't want to alienate people. If that's what you want to go do, that's fine. Go concentrate on that. That's fine. To each his own. I'm always about that. But I've always said it like this. I said, if you want to just take a small piece of the pie, that's what you're going to get. With me, I want the whole damn pie. I want the whole thing. So if I want the whole pie, that's what I'm going to go. That's where my mindset goes to go get that. Not just concentrating on one little thing, because again, you do some of those things and you start putting yourself in a certain corner, and that's what you stick with. That's what some people, I'm a corporate trainer, and that's what they do. Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
But even though they might be so freaking expressive, I do abstract art, I do all these other wonderful things, but that's what I concentrate on. Well, some point in their life, they go, you know what, I want to open up, I want to talk about it.
Exactly.
Goes, dude, you're a corporate trainer, you're uptight, please leave me, that's, again, I don't ever want to put myself in that one little thing. So that's what I have to be.
Exactly. And part of our mission is, bringing light to the world. I don't want to bring light to just one little group of people. I want to bring it to everyone.
Exactly.
Well, and we learn things too, right? We are talking to people that do things that we don't know anything about, and we get to learn about this.
Yes, I mean,
and experience their world, and that's the fun part.
And we get like big nuggets of information every time, things that you were talking about, you just don't expect, but they stick with you.
Yeah.
There are some guests we have on, there's bigger names, and there's people we know from 2 towns away that we've had on. It doesn't matter who they are. They've all had great information. There's been like 1 or 2 really good conversations or nuggets in the conversation that we've taken with us.
Yeah. And that's why I keep this right here. And I pull people and I tell them, this is the book that I keep right here, right by my desk. And when I get off here, there's a pen in here, and I write down the things that the nuggets that I think people drop, because there is knowledge in just about everything that we're talking about. Something somewhere I can take from this and go, okay, cool. This is, even if it's a 3-word knockdown here, little thing that I wanted to remember, that's enough to at least keep in top of mind what I wanted to look at that moment. And, it's a way for me, like I said, to go back and do my own sort of reflecting on what I've learned. Because like you guys said, there's so many different things that you can learn and concentrate on from so many different sources. I mean, guys, you guys have had Reiki healers on. You guys have had, it is, to say that there's a one size fits all is just being very narrow minded about believing how a person has to heal. Each person has their own way of healing and dealing with it. So like, one of the things that we were mentioning before we came on was the fact that I went through tapping. I had never done that. I'd heard of it before because I'd studied it a little bit about what neuro-linguistic programming is, because I was fascinated by it. And one of the things that they talk about in there's tapping, but I've never done it. I've just seen it mentioned and never thought about, okay, I need to dig deeper into that and understand what that is. I just kept going. I had it just a chance account. This is why I say that a universe brings you these things.
Yes.
The guest that I had on, I had no prior connection with. It wasn't even through something that I scheduled. It was through another friend who scheduled this person to come on with me. So I did not know the person personally. I didn't know anything about the person until the day before. And I put everything together, said, cool, we're going to get the whole show going on. I went and read as much as I could on her bio and what they sent me. And then, we started having a conversation. And one of the things that stuck out on the page was said that she was certified in EFT. So I said, okay, cool. That's another thing I can talk about. Let's talk about it. Cool. So we went into her whole career as first of all, taking the time to go to school and get a PhD in mathematics. Okay. That's not the easiest subject to do.
Yeah.
And then to become a TEDx speaker, they just don't hand those out as well. You got to have something really. So, and then we started talking about tapping, and we went through the process of tapping. That was the first time I've ever done that. And like I said, it opened up my mind to the point where I literally was sitting in a state of, I felt like blackout, where I don't know. I didn't remember what was in that moment. I don't remember what I was talking about going forward for those 5 minutes afterwards. It took a minute for me to think about what I was saying, literally. And I think for most of the time when I watched the video, she was thank God she was talking most of the time, because even though I was there and coherent, I did not know what I was talking about in that moment. But it was the first time in my life that I've ever had my mind hijacked, rewired, or whatever you want to call it. So at that point, I knew that the things that I have been reading and looking at and trying to understand were truth, and there's truth in it. And that kind of set me on another path to say, if this is true, what are so many other things out there? So, I've been looking at energy healing and Reiki and looking at all these different avenues because I think there's something in each one of those.
Mm-hmm.
There's a healing power in that. And this is what we're talking about now with everything that's gone on with people with understanding COVID and getting over and now everything's happening again. And then racial stuff and all this other stuff. People need healing. A lot of hearts are hurting.
Yeah.
And I think that to have as many resources possible to tell somebody, hey, look, you're healing the way you do it. There's no cure all. If meditation doesn't work, look, why don't we try this? Why don't we try that? There's so many channels out there to do it now. And you guys specialize in finding a lot of these people and sharing it. So this is why I find you guys, first of all, fascinating. And this is why I tell people, if you haven't listened to the show, please do. You're literally cheating yourself. Because even if you don't think that any of those things will work for you, you learn something. And I think that's one of the greater things about what we do here and what you guys do is that we get to help others learn, and we learn ourselves, kind of like you said. And it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, even finding about how when you guys had, to kind of segue into this, when you had Dee on, right? They had Dee Wallace, guys, if you don't know, and she was the mother in E.T. And there were so many different things that I didn't think about just watching the movie. Going back, and I've actually gone back and rewatched it after listening to it. Go, wow, these are things that I didn't realize.
Yeah,
you don't take from it because you're just watching the movie. And again, like what she went through as far as it did help her. It didn't help her career, but it did help put that what she was and what she was about into the world. And that was that was one of the really great things that you don't really think about when you think about actors or this is why I say the creative process has so much more to it than just I'm an artist, I'm a musician, I'm an actor, that's it. There's so many much more layers that go into it, because I think a lot of these people use a lot of these same things that we're talking about to get them in these mindsets to go get into really, because you have to think about it to get in some of these really deep emotional roles. I mean, you're going into a part of your mind sometimes that could be a dark place. I know I went through that. I mean, literally, when I opened myself up to tapping and started writing, I wanted to write about a really deep emotional heartbreak. So I went into that mindset, and boy, did it! You want to talk about black clouds and feeling like crud. I reached out to friends and said, hey, tell me something good. Get me in a better mindset. So I know that if I do this to go into writing, I know that actors probably have to do a lot of the same thing to go, okay, I have to play this role. I'm going to have to jump in and be this person. And they have to go in there into their minds and become that person. And sometimes, for a lot of those people, it's hard to get out of it. I mean, Heath Ledger was a Joker. He died but a lot of the times that he was saying some of the things that he had felt after the movie was because he had to get into the mind of being what a homicidal maniac was, and to have that mindset and to think, and it came across so well and everybody cheers it, but you got to think, wow, what must it been like to be in that mindset for so long? It wasn't just like, oh, I got to do it one day and it's hey, happy again. It was a different way to think. So, it's so, for me, I always try to enjoy feeling the bad parts of what I do is not the bad parts, but the bad emotions that I get sometimes, because I think it kind of helps focus a lot more whenever you are in those good states of mind. And when you have that better perspective on life. So how do you guys feel about that?
It's interesting you were talking about acting and, kind of shedding this mask. And I feel like to a certain extent, we all do that. And I think on the Divine Breadcrumb, we do try to showcase people that give different options. We're not trying to convince anybody of anything. No. It's just, here are some different healing modalities. Here is an alternative to mainstream. Here is something maybe you've always been curious about, but needed to learn a little bit more, and give people a safe space to learn about these things. And Deb and I have been really lucky because a lot of the people we've had on, whether they're healers or mediums or whatever they are, we've benefited from that. We've gotten readings, we've been given distance healing, we've gotten all of this. And I'm telling you, I just recommend that people stay open, because there's a lot to gain. And, Deb and I talk a lot with our guests about, a balance between Eastern medicine and Western medicine. There definitely can be a balance. We're not saying one's better over the other. We're just saying be open, because a lot of times what's going on isn't working, and so to me, having these different guests from all walks of life, teaching all different kinds of things, that can't be a bad thing. Take what you want and leave the rest.
Right. And the other thing is, when you're talking to people about what they're passionate about, you feel that. Mm-hmm. And that energy, whether you're going to go try tapping or you're going to go try Reiki, maybe you're not, but you catch that energy and that passion, and that goes somewhere.
Yeah.
And yes. And, whenever you find people who, again, have that passion, that fire, sometimes it can really energize you. I mean, let me pull it up, because it's like this lady here came on my show. Her name is Michelle Moraes, and her story and what she's went through and some of the things that she had to experience in life, and for her to have the mindset that she does and and how she wants to help change people's lives and the way she talks about it. I literally was feeding off of her energy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wanted to go jump and run and do all kinds of crap that, because she was just that fired up about it. I mean, she's sitting here telling me, hey, I have 4 parts of my brain that don't work. I've had a double mastectomy. I've had all these other things, but you know what? I learned how to open my mouth. And then she's another one that's had a TED Talk. She's been, she does her own thing she does her own show on Facebook and that sort of thing. And, she helps coach speakers. And that's one of the things that I told her that I need help with. I've mentioned this over and over again, and I'll do it again. I had a big fear of speaking. But, I'm not afraid of it anymore, to tell you the truth. But what I would like is to help somebody coach me about being up there and talking in front of people. Because I think that's, for me, the next level. Like you guys have kind of experienced it as well. It's a whole different energy, right? Mm-hmm. Being up there and talking to people. And one of the things that all of these speakers have told me is that when you feel the energy from the people, that energizes you.
Yes.
Yep.
To be a better concentrated speaker, whatever it is in that moment. And I said, I want that. Because again, I'm passionate about going out there and putting positivity into the world, because we don't have enough of it. We don't. I tell everybody, this is my own equation. There's no mathematical way to prove it, but I say you got to have it. For me, I got to have at least 4 hours of positive reinforcement in my life to equal about 30 minutes of negativity. I mean, it can be that simple,
right?
To take you from a mindset. So it goes from meditation to affirmations to motivationals and spiritual. I mean, all these things go into my daily routine. And that gets me set for the day, gets me in whatever groove it is. And then whatever comes my way, I'm ready to deal with it. As opposed, I mean, as opposed to not just waking up and going out and every day. And then what do you do the first thing you go to work and they tell you you're fired? For me, it's like, okay, all right, let's go. I got something else I can do right now. Let me go see what life has for me. Because that's just the mindset that I have at this point. Mm-hmm. For some people, that'd be, everything else that comes along with it, the bills, and how am I going to do all, all that stuff is going to be there whether I have that mindset or not. Mm-hmm. Bills are going to be there whether or not, if I'm still working or not. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to get up. I'm going to be super positive. I'm going to go see what I can find out in the world. And you know what? As long as I have that attitude, more times than not, something opens up. The universe goes, hey, okay, cool. You were meant to do this. Here you go, my friend. I have something else for you. So it's for me, I love the fact that I get to have conversations like with you guys. I get to have conversations with other different individuals. And at the end of the day, a lot of the times we always get to walk away with adding something to somebody else's life. And that's the whole purpose of me doing this every single day, is to reach out to somebody and say, look, somebody's out there hurting right now. Somebody could be wanting to find what they're supposed to find in life. And they find it between the three of us and they go, okay, cool. What's the Divine Breadcrumb? Let me go email and check it out and go see. And then they go over there and they go, this is what I've been looking for. You don't know. That's the whole point of impact. And this is what you guys talk about and what you've created. That's what what we're talking about is what you literally mean what a divine breadcrumb is. It is that little nugget wherever it's supposed to come from, shows up in your life at the right time, at the right moment. And that's where you have to go take it from there. And
exactly. That's the important part, is answering that calling, because a lot of people ignore it or are afraid. And that's not a judgment. I mean, I was for a long time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, once you start recognizing them, it's like, all right, I guess I got to do this. All right, I guess, and every time it's a little bit scary, but now the more you do it, the more you trust that it's going to be okay, even though it's scary.
It is. It is. Yeah. And that is so true that, for 45 years of my life, I've had plenty of them in front of me. I just never knew what to do with it, never knew what to react with it. And at the beginning of the year, I said, you know what, let me pick it up and see what it happens. And each path that I've gone down along the way, there's another one. And each one of them, I keep telling myself, I'm less scared to grab it now. I want more of them. Let me go find the next one.
Exactly.
And the more you pay attention, the more they show up.
Yeah, the universe definitely plays with you if you start paying attention.
Yeah.
And again, that's why so many things people call it, law of attraction, whatever. It sometimes those things are just meant to happen for a reason. Sometimes you don't even have to understand why. But if you act on it, when you go back and have the time to reflect, you go, that's why.
Exactly. Because when I got that download, I think about that. What if I had said to myself, that's whatever. I don't even know what that is.
Right. And you go, what is it?
Yeah, because it's not just the podcast. It's all the people we've met. It's some of the opportunities we've had. It's just all snowballs. And I think life would be very different had we not gone for it.
And you think to yourself, not to think about it or regret, but how many of these do you think I left behind? Gosh, exactly. if I had just that one, but you know what? I can only pick up the ones that are still in front of me.
Well, and I don't think I was ready. I think that's part of it. It's, everything is unfolding exactly in the right timing. There were lessons that I need to learn, Deb needed to learn, and it happened. I mean, because let me tell you, we talked for years about wanting to do something together, but we just had, there was talk about, well, let's do a muffin shop. Let's, we had all these ideas over the years that we thought would be great. but
Thank
yet,
God we didn't do the
I
muffin.
know, I know. Can you imagine? Yes, we would be, yeah.
It'd be bakers, right?
Yeah. But this made sense. It was one of those things where I think sometimes people, well, not sometimes, a lot of people go searching for their purpose, and I was one of them. But it's already there. Your path is already inside you, and it's going to find you, not the other way around.
Exactly.
So you just have to trust that it's going to unfold.
Yeah, that would be a whole different title. Carol Campos Baker. I mean,
we could have probably still called it the Divine Breadcrumb. There you go.
Well, the name was there, right?
The name was there.
But that's funny. That's great, though. That you guys mentioned it. So let me get to the last question. This is what I ask every guest that usually comes on, and it does have to deal with. It does have to deal a little bit with death. So it is the question that I kind of ask everybody is that once the book is said and done on Carol Campos and Deb Sorensen, what kind of legacy do you guys want to leave behind, and what do you both want to be remembered for?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I think for me, I just want to leave the world a better place than I found it, and just do my part. And whether that's for me a lot through writing, through stories, that for me would be nice. I don't need to be famous. I don't need to, those are the things that don't really matter to me. But if, somebody mentions my name 10 years after I pass, and somebody says, oh yeah, she was a really great lady. She was a cool lady. She was a great writer, or, she was just really nice to people, or that would mean more to me than, having a statue erected in my name.
There you go.
I think that for me as well, but also just to sort of instill in people the curiosity of just keep learning and looking and experiencing and enjoying and finding your truth, or finding your path, or your passion, or whatever that you want to call it. But that fire.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's
hope is my favorite word. And I think that as long as you have hope, you can get through anything.
That is it's funny that my two favorite words are both 4 letters, and that's LOVE and HOPE, because if you can have both of those, no matter what your circumstances are, you'll usually find a way to get through. The moment you lose one or both, you've pretty much lost a war. So if you can hold on to those, no matter what, you know what, you're gonna be all right. Yep. I don't care what they throw at you. You know what? Even if death is knocking on your doorstep, if you can hold on to love and hope, it's gonna resonate beyond your time on this earth. And for me, that's what I push and I strive for, in wanting to leave behind a legacy, so that people understand those things. There's more than enough love in this world. I just think people don't know how to show it.
Yep.
Or receive it in some cases.
Yes, and that's a whole nother thing, right? Is how to take love. Yeah. It's they think of it as an illness or something. It's hard to break those barriers when somebody really truly says, I want to love you. A friend, a relative, or somebody like that, even a stranger, hey, I don't know who you are, but look, I love you, man. You're a human being. You're just like me. We're the same people. Here's this or here's that. And people just look at you weird. I mean, like, is there a camera on? Are you trying to trick me, or is there something going on? No, just being honest. I mean, I've done this. I've told this before. I used to take small Bibles and put money in them, and would go at because I'm a delivery driver. I would stop at a street corner and I see somebody holding up a sign asking for help, And I go, all the help that you need is right here in this book. The ones that would took it, I knew they would find what they were looking for. The ones that said, you know what, I don't want that. They're thinking they want money. They would just leave it in my hands. Right. And you go, that's a form of me trying to give you love and hope, my friend. This is, I don't want nothing else from you except to find what's going to be best for you and get you out of whatever situation he's in. And that's all I can hope for.
Yeah. People get uncomfortable with that, though. I mean, even put love aside, people look at you weird if you say hello on the street. You know, Deb and I joke, one of the first girl trips we took was to Bermuda, and we're on the little pink bus, and, you know, people are coming on the bus, good morning, and everyone says good morning to them. And we thought, if we did this in Boston, there it would be taken away.
Exactly, right there. You know, it's kind of like what, it's hard to believe, but that's our society. It's to say, you know, sit down next to somebody. Hey, how are you doing? Having a nice conversation with somebody. I love those conversations because, again, I could learn something. I could find out something. I could hopefully help somebody. I mean, you never know, but if you don't open your mouth and at least say hello, have a smile on your face, you'll never know how far that can get you. So thank you, ladies, again, so much
thank you
for taking the time to come on the show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And, you know, I just want to say again, guys, that I really admire your work, and I'll keep following along. So keep creating, because you guys are making an impact, and I love that. So
thank you.
And to everybody else, of course, just sit tight, ladies. I just want to ask you a few questions before I get out of here. Everybody else, I will see you tomorrow evening. Tomorrow night's guest, he is a lawyer from Florida, and we're going to have a very interesting conversation. This is why I bring so many different people from so many different aspects. But his background is in theater. So to go from theater into a lawyer, that's kind of a big jump. So we're going to talk about tomorrow evening about that. But everybody else, thank you so much again for taking the time, joining the show. And I'll be back tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Everybody else, bye-bye.